This is Laurie Moore-Moore with Texas Brave and Strong. Tidbits of Texas history you never learned in school. Today's episode, a German nobleman negotiates peace with the Comanche. Early German settlement in Texas was fraught with problems. In the spring of 1842, in a German town along the Rhine River, a group of German noblemen met to form the Society for the Protection of German Immigrants to Texas, known as the Adelsverein. The purpose of the organization was to acquire land in Texas for German settlement and to support and protect the resulting settlements. 2 years later, sight unseen, the Society purchased an almost 4 million acre Texas land grant, known as the Fisher-Miller Grant. However, the sellers failed to tell the German buyers that the land, which was between the Llano and Colorado rivers, was not only located far from the Texas coast where settlers would arrive, it was in Comanche, Comanche Indian Territory. When Prince Karl of Solms-Braunfels, the Society's Commissioner General, realized that the challenges associated with the Fisher-Miller Grant made immediate settlement difficult, if not impossible, German settlers were already landing at the Texas ports of Galveston and Indianola, eager to claim their 320 acres for a couple or 120 acres if single. Prince Solms was able to quickly buy new land along the banks of the Comal and Guadalupe rivers between Austin and San Antonio. He named the new settlement New Braunfels. In March of 1845, Prince Solms arrived in New Braunfels with the first group of settlers who had been given town lots and 10-acre tracts of land. 2 months later, he returned to Germany. His replacement was another nobleman, Baron von Meusebach, who shed his title and became simply John O. Meusebach. Discovering that Prince Solms had used certificates of credit and promissory notes to cover the Society's expenses, Meusebach realized the Society was deeply in debt, to the tune of $20,000. To add additional complications, in 6 months, ships carrying several thousand more immigrants would arrive at Indianola. To accommodate the new arrivals, Meusebach was able to establish a second German settlement about 80 miles from New Braunfels on the banks of the Pedernales River. He named the new settlement Fredericksburg. Problems continued to plague the project. Within a year, the Mexican-American War, with its high demand for wagons and teamsters to transport the U.S. military, left German immigrants stranded in tent camps on the beaches of the Texas coast without transportation inland. The winter was unusually cold, and all spring and summer people suffered with malaria, dysentery, and various fevers. Many died. Meanwhile, Meusebach faced a critical deadline. To prevent losing the title to the Fisher-Miller Grant, the Society had to survey and at least partially occupy the land grant by the fall of 1847. For that purpose, Meusebach created an exploratory expedition. He hired surveyors to survey and help decide if the land was suitable for farming. He brought in a geologist from Berlin to determine if rumors were true that there were precious metals on the land. Recruiting mounted Germans, an interpreter, and 3 Shawnee warriors to hunt for them, on January 22, 1847, traveling with 3 wagons, the group of 40 brave men headed for Comanche, the hunting grounds of the dreaded Comanche warriors. A critically important expedition objective was to somehow meet with Comanche leaders to offer a proposal for a treaty of peace. Without such a treaty, Meusebach believed safe settlement would be impossible and the land grant would have to be forfeited. On February 5th, after almost 2 weeks of travel, during which the Shawnee warned that the Comanche were watching them, contact occurred. 8 Comanche, led by Chief Katumsi of the Pennatica or honey-eater tribe, appeared and demanded to know the Germans' purpose. Meusebach explained that their intentions were peaceful, and he wished to negotiate a treaty for peace. The Comanche must have been leery that a treaty would be lasting, since Anglo-Texan settlers had broken other agreements. Nonetheless, Meusebach was able to convince the chief to agree to gather the western Comanche head chiefs at a camp on the San Saba River to hear the Germans' proposal. Meusebach invited Chief Katumsi and his party to dinner, an offer which was accepted. A couple of days later, as the Germans arrived at the Indian San Saba River camp, the chief requested that they discharge their rifles as a sign of good faith. Despite being in sight of 5,000 or more Comanche, the Germans complied in a brave show of trust. Katumsi and his advance group reciprocated. On February 10th, Indian agent Robert S. Neighbors arrived with a message from the governor of Texas advising Meusebach of the danger of entering Indian territory. Obviously, it was too late. However, Neighbors stayed to assist in negotiations. Another meeting was held, and gifts including wool blankets, copper wire for bracelets, cloth, and tobacco were presented to the Comanche. To conserve his supplies and recognizing the imbalance in numbers, Meusebach reduced his group size from 40 to 17, sending the extra men home. Negotiations and exploration of the territory continued, and on March 1, 1847, 15 or more major chiefs assembled in a circle around a fire used for lighting a peace pipe. The council began by passing the peace pipe twice around the circle. Meusebach then began the negotiation. He explained the Germans intended to start a new settlement on the Llano River, where they would plant corn and raise cattle. The Comanche would be welcome to visit and trade their pelts and animals for German food and products. Germans would be allowed to travel through Comanche territory safely, and Comanche could visit German settlements as long as all came in peace. In addition, he asked that they would support one another if wrongdoings occurred. Finally, in return for allowing the Germans to survey the land between the Llano and San Saba rivers, he would give them $1,000 worth of presents and $2,000 in provisions when they came to Fredericksburg. The next day, the Comanche leaders, including 3 especially powerful chiefs, Buffalo Hump, Old Owl, and Santa Anna, agreed to leave the warpath and walk the white path of peace with the Germans west of the Brazos. A time was set for the signing of the agreement in Fredericksburg. 2 days later, Meusebach's party left to return home. In Fredericksburg on May 9th, the Meusebach-Comanche Treaty of 1847 was signed by 6 Comanche leaders and John O. Meusebach. It is considered to be the only treaty between whites and Indians that has never been broken. The treaty is still in effect today. The original copy of the treaty was returned to Texas in 1970 by John Meusebach's granddaughters. It now resides in the Texas State Library in Austin. This has been Laurie Moore-Moore with Texas Brave and Strong, the best little podcast in Texas. Be sure to check out my novel, Gone to Dallas, The Storekeeper, 1856 to 1861. Find it on Amazon. Here's a bit of a teaser, the novel's first line. Sarah's husband had been a disappointment in life, but she had to admit was certainly a handsome corpse. Thanks for listening. Y'all come back.